Otsu here. Who else would it be? This is Observations with Otsu for Tuesday, November 12th. Hope you've had a good day. It's been a great day to be a bull. It's been a great week. It's been a great month to be a bull. I think I've been more excited for this past week than I have literally probably my entire 8 year trading career. And this is just amazing, right? It's just amazing. I'm going to get into it. Um, you probably saw the thumbnail, things like that. So mainly I'm going to focus on two things. One, the analysis for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Sui, and Dogecoin. And then we're going to talk about, well, what's next? Like how do we analyze this? Like how do we trade, going forward, as far as like what if you've been sidelining this whole time? How do you get in? If you've made a lot of money, how do you take profits? How do you not? Especially with people like the bonk guy, like which he's just got super diamond hands. Like where do you go? We'll get into that a little bit. This will be a shorter video than normal because it is kind of a Tuesday afternoon video. So we'll see how this goes. Anyway, some preliminaries, not much. We'll get started after that. Really, just two quick preliminaries. One, we have the Apex group. That is my private group in the Discord. You can check that out. I'm going to leave a link to the free version. Shouldn't say version. It is a free Discord group, so you can go ahead and check that out. I can put you a link in there. You can add to that. But within there's an option to have more of a private channel group discussion. It's been very, very, very good. We've had probably the best 3 weeks that we've had, definitely since January, if not longer. And a lot of people have made 2x on their portfolio. I've shared multiple coins that have gone up 500% or more. There's one I think that I can't even do the math right now, but it went almost 10x essentially. I think not 8.5 or 9x. So a lot of things going on. Lots to celebrate. So that's the first thing. The second thing is actually on the screen here. I have actually two scripts. These are two scripts here. So the buy and sell are one script in particular, and this band is the next one. So I'm gonna focus on these one at a time. The buy and sell here. A lot of people, I think that's what people are interested in the most. So if you go something like let's just take Sui for example. This is an ARIN based indicator that I've made. This is proprietary. This is something that is directly based off my trading strategies. And when I say directly, like I mean directly. Like a lot of people will try to sell you an indicator or some bull crap, right? I use this. Okay, there's people in the group. And there's people in my circle that have been in my circle mutually for 4 to 5 years, okay, and they know that I've had this. This is a 4-year-old script now. I've had this for a whole cycle already. I talk about it all the time on Twitter. Talk about it all the time on Discord. It is available, okay. This is something that is available. This is one of the best ways that you can support me as well because you get direct access to something that I use, and then that value gets reciprocated to me. So this is a good recent example with Sui. Kind of had a run with that, right? And so Dogecoin in particular, like I'm not really hiding much here. So that was pretty much the epic run there. So a lot of these, even though we're down, considerably here, it's gone pretty good. I think Bonk is up 26%. This one was a little more choppier than I would have expected, but still pretty solid here, especially on this run right here. So if you look here on these lines, let me go over here just a second. So take this take this line here. Actually, this one's much more clear. The darker line, that's your entry, right? And so um, I'm just messing up here. Here's your entry, right? Your stop loss is at the red zone. Okay, so it gives you the entry and the stop loss for you. You take profits whenever you decide that you think that that's beneficial. That's the whole point, right? And so you could have got a max of 13R if it's at the candle close. Of course, you may not always get that. Again, that is up to you. I might work on one that takes profits, but I like the idea that you get to be in charge of your own profit taking because everybody has different goals, and so some of you are okay longing. Like I said, like the bunk guy, he can just long forever. He's paid over $1 million in fees. I could not do that. I don't have the conviction to do that, and I would want to take profits. And for some of those, you could take profits or you can mix it up, right? And so this current candle here is a really good example. So here's your entry, here's your stop loss. It didn't even really get down there. So up here we're right at around 6R already, okay? And it's still going. It could be going even higher. So that's how that works. And so that's the apex indicator. I'll leave a link in the description for this as well. And then last but not least is my apex or my ARUN trend indicator. So this one's only a trend based indicator. So this one's a little bit different. It uses a band. This is very similar to whole average or some of those things. What I did was I was able to modify what ARUN does, and like I've dissected ARUN like 10 different ways to make different indicators and types of analysis, because I use ARUN different ways. I use it for a trend and momentum based indicator, but also a range bound. So I modify that, right? And so this is the trend based one, right? And the momentum. So something like this, you long when it's blue, or it's bullish when it's blue. It's bearish when it's not blue. I have it as gray. I think it'll be almost black if you get it by default. But what the idea is that you can long after it goes bullish here. So after it goes above the band and it turns blue. So it would have been like right here, let's say. And that may have been different depending on, actually I think I'm gonna just be conservative and put it at the top, right? And so your stop loss is usually on the band on the previous candle. That's coming out in a future update. But based off of that, you're looking at like a 5.62 at current prices for Bitcoin. Now, a lot of, you may laugh at this and say, well, Otsu, you're just doing this, whatever. But the point is like a lot of you guys have been, a lot of you guys have been tricked by all these like perma bears. Like there's a very popular guy out there right now that has just totally wrecked a lot of people of his following because they've been shorting since 50,000. Okay, and it's we're at 89,000. Okay, we're at a new high right now. And so, and again, I ain't saying I'm the perfect trader. I ain't saying these are perfect indicators, but I am saying I've tried these. I've had these for all of these for a cycle now. They've worked for me, and past performance obviously does not equal future results. So you can take that for what it is. But these are available if you're looking for something to make your trading easier for you. Go ahead and check them out. They're both in the description. If I post this on Twitter, I'll put them down below as well. So anyway, those are the two preliminaries. Let's get started because this is what you're here for. All right, so let's get started. We're gonna start with Bitcoin first. Again, try to get a lower video. I usually get around 45 minutes to an hour. I do want to get this to about 30 minutes. So let's just get started. Weekly charts are first. So looking at this is already very interesting. I did cover the weekly very, very, very briefly in a video on Sunday that most of you probably haven't watched, and that's completely fine because it gets buried. So our weekly candle was 16% last week, and so this was the biggest candle dollar wise last week. It was not percentage wise. Actually, I think it barely hits the top 50 as far as percentages. And that just shows you the type of scale that we're working with here. Okay, like we went up 16%. We basically started that candle at 68,000, just under 69,000, and then we went all the way to 80,000. So you got to get used to this. First of all, that was basically a $12,000 swing. You got to get used to this. Okay, we lost about $3,000 earlier today in the charts for Bitcoin, and that's going to be normal. Your $3,000 to $5,000 swings will be the new norm, and you are not used to that. I can just guarantee, like even me being here for 3 full cycles now, I'm not used to that either. I had to really think about that again, and so that's just something to keep in mind, right? Because we're used to $300 to $500 being a swing. Now it's 3 to 5,000, and that's just kind of where we are, right? And so that's we just got to accept that, right? And so now, I mean, we're 2 days into the market already, and we're already up another 50, almost 15%. We're up 29% total. We're up about 10, 11%. So not as much as I thought I was based off just eyeballing that, but up about 10 to 11%. And so that looks very solid. I mean, we're on our way to do more. It's still early in the week. We could retrace here. We could have a bearish week. I am monitoring that. That's something that I'm looking at. And so usually when the errand here is like 100 and 0 and we get a bearish candle, that's typically a bad sign. So we don't want to close bearish. I have a hard time thinking that we will, but we'll see. There's a lot of lot of the week left. Bitcoin can do anything. If you've been here for more than 2 years, you understand the rules by now. Like you understand how wild Bitcoin can be. And so just keep that in mind. But overall, this is looking pretty great. Doing some, price action analysis. Which, so by the way, like I do want to kind of stop here and say, like, I do want to do price action analysis here, and it's always part of my it's always part of my strategy. It's part of the Apex Academy that I teach as well. But it's just one facet of the strategy. I am a hybrid trader, so I use price action and trend slash momentum, which Aaron is a part of the second half. And I use them together, but primarily I am a trend trader. I'm more favorable in these type of conditions with the trend conditions than I am with range bound. And so I do want to kind of zoom out just here, just for a little bit, and look at this. Okay, so like you had your consolidation down here, right? And so this was basically a whole range. I know it's more complicated than that, but just accept that for now. This is a trend based move. This was your range bound as well. Okay, pretty much all of this, you had a deviation that was your trigger to start the bear market, right? And so you had a trend going down. Really, it's probably more so here, and then there was a smaller one here, right? And so you had one big range to another. You had one big range, one small range, but overall trending, right? Range bound again here, and this was the start of the bull market right here when this flipped off my band about 20,500 that initiated the trend. But we went immediately into a range, and that's where it caught a lot of people off guard. That people thought we were just going to go up all the time, and then when we went down, people thought, well, this is going to deviate back below, and it didn't. It never did come back down. We trended back above. Now we got into a range bound again, and so this was your range bound, okay? And I say all of that to say that we have broken the range bound. We broke it last week, and now we're trend bound again. And even if you want to go down, and there's people that believe this. There's people that legitimately believe that have posted today that really believe this is a bull trap. Okay, and I'm not saying that they could be wrong. I do think that they're wrong. But when you pump 30% in 2 weeks, that's not a trap. Okay, like you can successfully make money and take profits, and that's not going to be a trap for anything. Okay. First of all, second of all, this is clearly an impulsive move. This is a sign of a new trend, and so you have to take a different way of thinking for this. And so I say all this to say two things, or you should trade in two different ways. At least I trade in two different ways. I should say I'm bouncing around. One is range bound trading. Two, trend bound trading. It takes different criteria, different goals, different take profits, different positionings, and different disciplines in risk management, right? Now we're in the trend based move, and a lot of people can't really adjust because we've been in a range for so long. Okay, and I was vocal about this earlier, about last month, I think, where this was probably either the biggest, it's the biggest complete isolated consolidation we've had in Bitcoin, and I think it's the second biggest overall consolidation we've had. And this had a bear flag, or a bull flag, I should say, as well. Some people want to compare it to this here. This was very distributive. This had a series of choppy highs and came down. This one didn't have choppy highs. This had choppy lows, higher lows, and so this becomes a bull flag in that scenario, and then it launches forward, and that's kind of why we're up here for right now. This is not a bull trap, okay? We can argue. Let's just say this is the exact top, 89,505. This is the exact top, and then we deviate all the way back down to 60,000. That was not a bull trap, okay? That was just a blow off top. You got to stop. Like I hate the word trap when people use that for trading, because it implies that they know all this other stuff that everything's going to do. You also need to kind of forget the idea that bears are going to do this, bulls are going to do this. Like, it's not, you can't create a story out of this stuff. You can't be story driven about this. I mean, it's fine to create a story. You're not necessarily wrong in a lot of senses, but when you start to kind of um, you know, create those things, you start to become an author of your own narrative, and then that puts you in danger because you're one of these days you're going to be very wrong, okay? And so you have to let the market do its thing. The market is like a river, okay? It's like a river. You can't, as much as you want to, you can't bend the river to your will. Even if you get a dam and you try to reroute it, like, it's still going to flow. It's still going to cause floods. It's still going to cause droughts, and it's still going to go one certain direction. And you need to figure out what the direction goes. Okay, you you let the water do its thing, and then you can utilize and use that water. You can make boats, you can drink the water, you can go out and have fun and swim and do all these other things. Like, let the markets do its thing, okay? And then you'll probably be a better trader, to be honest with you. So that gives us kind of an idea of what we're looking at. Like, I really want to emphasize we are in a trend bound area of the markets. I have a video that talks about that. I really want to get more. I should have gotten more, but there's one called three trading strategies that people don't use in the bull cycle. I use all three. They've been very beneficial. But that's kind of what I'm looking at with this, and so that's the kind of look that I'm presenting here. And so I'll get rid of all these to kind of look at things from that price action perspective. And so first things first, we have this swing high order block on the candle side, and so this is where it is. It's all the way down here at about 70,895, just shy of 71,000. This is going to be our invalidation point. I've shared this at different price points, to be fair, so I may have confused some people. But this is I've shared as big as this here. But as far as the weekly goes, this is what this is looking at. And so in order for this to deviate and be invalid, which again it's too long to be invalid now, because even if you have a run up like this and it comes back down, like, that was still part of the move. Like, unless we just completely nuke in one day or 1 week, which would be like a 22%, which we could do. But I mean, that's not like that's very atypical, is what I'm saying. And so, but anyway, would be our invalidation. If we close back into the 68,000 marker, then that would spare trouble. But the problem with that is we could easily squiggle our way down here all the way to 72. People would freak out, and this would actually be a bullish retest. So now you're getting into some conflicting territory, because we could drop pretty far and still maintain a bullish retest. In fact, this is what we've done, in history, actually. Like, this was not a big one, right? But this was still 15%. If we drop 15% today, um, that would bring us down to about 76. A lot of you would freak out. Okay, and so again, look how big this is compared to this one, and it's still roughly the same 14%. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, you have to scale your dollars now, or use logarithmic, I guess. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, a lot of people will freak out about a 14% move when this was a classic retest here. And so, and even this one was pretty good. From candle to candle, it was 46%. And if we do that, I mean, we're talking pretty significant down to 47. Now, will we get that? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm under the impression that not only will we not get it, but I think we've bottomed here. I don't think we'll come back down here unless we go into a new bear cycle. I do think we could hit 50,000 back in the bear cycle, but that's years down the road, in my opinion. So we'll see how that goes. But we've accelerated pretty significantly. We could still we could close today bearish. That's very easy to do. And I think the current market, like, I look at the coins, like, I mean, XRP is doing fine, but like Dogecoin, the only green ones are really Dogecoin, Woo, Bonk, Pepe, TRX, and Floki. So like 60% of those are meme coins. Okay, and there's a reason why the meme coins are doing pretty good. I'm gonna look here on the meme coin section, and you have a lot more green here. Degen is up almost 50%, and so those are all doing pretty good. And so that's kind of what this is looking like. It's very interesting market. I don't understand the bearish thesis at all, because you're losing a lot of potential here. Like, the one time that you should not be bearish is now. I'm just saying, it's not worth your risk. Like, you can look for shorts at any time. I have no problem with that, right? But like, of the past 2 to 3 years, now you decide to become bearish. Like, what's the goal? It's not, you're not out to make more money, because you can make more money longing meme coins, just being really stupid and longing meme coins, right? So it's not about the money. It has to be about the ego, right? And so, well, what's the point? Nobody cares. Like, your goal is to just say, haha, I told you so. Like, who cares about that? That shows insecurity. Okay, I've actually been listening to podcasts about insecurities, and that is the number one thing, is where you feel like you need to show dominance for the sake of it, right? It's one thing to have dominance, but it's another thing to kind of show it for the sake of it, and just kind of run with that. But anyway, those are the drawdowns that you could look at. Now, we're still far away. That now, from a trend based perspective, we have this zone here that I'm looking at. Okay, this is something I talk about in premium very often, and in my Discord. If you are familiar with my work, I look at the trend base here for a parabolic run. That stop here is going to be about 92%. So I talked about in Discord yesterday in the free channel. I did analysis on Bitcoin, and I said I would quote this in Observations with Otsu, and it's the fact that I do think that $100,000 is coming very quickly. I think that we are going to tap into the 100s, and then we are going to stop there for now. Okay. And that doesn't mean that the market's over. Like, you need to get out of your head that you think, oh, this is it, this is it, this is it. Like, there's too many conflicting ideas on Twitter right now, but most of them are trying to say like, well, the market's going to get bearish because of the top here, or alt season's going to run because Bitcoin dominance and all this stuff. Like you're looking every hour for answers, and it's not going to show up, right? Because like you're focusing on the wrong things. Those things will come, but let them come in their own time, right? There's going to be a time where you get to enjoy your youthhood, and you're going to get older, or you're going to be a parent. You enjoy each of those times, right? Like, don't let yourself, especially going on to like real life stuff. Like, don't let your 20s and 30, like your 20s, be the best time of your life. Like, I know some people in their 70s and 80s that are living their best life right now, and because they're able to enjoy stuff like that. I'm kind of getting off the rails, but you see what I mean. Stop focusing on these little minutiae of the analysis, and focus on a long-term perspective, because this is where the money is. Okay, a lot of people, like I have a sister-in-law that has made probably more money than you guys. Not I mean percentage wise, but have made more money just buying something and just forgetting about it. Okay, and so there's a time to sell, right? And there's times for all those things, right? So just keep that in mind. But that's the trend line. I think that we're going to hit the 92, 93. I actually think we're going to hit, if we go to 100, we tap that, or even really close, like 98, 99, and we come back down to 93, then I think that's a sign that we will stall for like a month. Okay, and so this is the area that I'm looking at is something like this in the 100 to 80,000 to 100,000 range. And so I can even kind of put this up here and kind of give that a little, fib block here. So we're kind of at the mid right now. So I am expecting that we could stall here. This is still looking very good. And I really want to focus, like, I'm not saying that we're going to go bearish. Stop. Don't, you really have to train your brain to not always think bearish means 90% drops and bullish means 8,000% gains, right? You got to take it for what it's worth in those times, right? So just keep that in mind, as you're navigating the markets with this. But we're in the kind of the mid range here. I like to see a tap up to here and then come back below the range here. That's what I like to see. The thing is, if we try to go by the range here, it would take until October of next year. I don't think that that's likely. I think we will get this break here, and we'll probably go on a parabolic run. And so that's the thing. If we don't reject here, we're going parabolic. You think we're going parabolic now? We're not. Okay. And so if we come above this zone, I think we'll consolidate and then we'll launch up. And so that might take, I mean, months may seem like a long time, but they're really not. It might accelerate much higher. So that's what I'm looking at on the weekly. I don't spend a lot of time on this, but I think it's worth it. So there's pretty much nothing else to look at as far as this goes. Arun is full bull, looking pretty good. RSI is at 72 and just doing pretty reasonably well. We can go on the daily here and kind of check this out just a little bit at this mid-range structure here. And the trouble is, you want to start trading. Like, what do you want to do if you get in or not here? You got this rejection here. You got to play this by a trend, right? So get you an EMA or get my band or whatever you want to do, and then you play the breaks of these based off the exposure that you're comfortable with, right? And so if we get a move above here, we'll get the bearish divergence. We'll come back down. I still think I think most of this week is probably done. We've had a pretty explosive 2 days, so I think. Again, I think we might hit 92, 93, maybe stall a little bit, go to 100,000 next week, and then we stall again for a longer duration and go into a reaccumulation phase. And that's the thing. A lot of people like reaccumulation phases are not bearish. Okay, they are bullish formations. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So anyway, that is Bitcoin. Spent a lot of time on that, but I think it's worth it to give you a context. Let's go ahead and go to Ethereum. All right, so let's go to Ethereum on the weekly. So we're going to clear this out. Focus on here on this candle. Aaron band is in play. It just turned blue, by the way, so that is a sign that you are still early to this. When it just flips blue, it's usually the sign of something that's about ready to just start, basically. We can get things like this here, but that's it does happen. You just got to play it, because eventually it won't happen, right? So you can't look at certain patterns, like irregular patterns in the past, to determine the mistakes you have going into the future. So we had about 29-30% run, very solid, one of the best runs that we've had for quite some time. I don't know how to compare it to other candles, if how big that was, but 30% is pretty good. 30,000, I'm retired. I'll see you guys for never. So no, just kidding. But so about 30% on that one, and so that's pretty solid here. And so the main thing I want to look at with Ethereum is how much structurally different this is versus Bitcoin. So like Bitcoin, you had your breakout like basically a week and a half ago, looking pretty solid. It's already 30% combined, but Ethereum, it's made 30%. It hasn't even made a new local high yet. And so I think that that's very interesting. This is a very lagging coin. Now, I'm looking at this from a trend perspective here. Um, and so we could modify this different ways. I think it's probably safe to put this here. Consider this like a small deviation. I don't always do that. I very rarely do I do that, but I think this is pretty solid. So you have a very large continuation pattern. We actually did this with Solana a couple weeks ago when it was like this, right? And so I'll draw this really quick. We'll get back to Ethereum here in a second, but I drew it like this, and then that broke pretty upward pretty quickly. So the same thing is here, but we're at the lows here, and I talked about how we could hang out at the lows and impulse, and that's kind of what we did. I didn't bank on it too much, but it did go the way that I was thinking. And so with all of that, you have this zone right here. And so if we can actually, I'll probably put this up here to the wicks. So if we can go above 4,000, which I know is a higher target, but then if we go above and close above that, then we're on to significantly higher targets. So just something that you can keep in mind with that. I think it's definitely a possibility with the run here. We'll see where that goes. Arun, we got the bullish cross, and RSI we got above 50. That's very crucial. When we get both of those combined, usually within a few candles of each other, that's a very good sign that Ethereum might run here. A lot of people have been, it's been controversial, so to speak, to talk about whether Ethereum's going to run. Like some people think it's stupid that it will run, like it's just dead, and some people think like the other people are also stupid for thinking that it won't run. And so it just depends on your personal conviction. Like there's so many coins out there, you can pick and choose which ones that you would prefer to look at. So that's kind of how that works. But for me, Aaron just turned bullish here. RSI just flipped. This is, I think, of all the 5 coins that I'm talking about today, Ethereum is the one that is probably that you could just hold it. You could buy it and hold it and forget about it. And so I personally think meme coins could run faster. It just depends on your risk tolerance, because I think Ethereum is going to have less downside. That's another thing to consider, because some meme coins like Dogecoin, which we'll talk about, have done some insane numbers, right? Like this is your weekly, past month has just been great, but it also has gone down pretty significantly, where Ethereum will have a harder trouble doing that. Okay, so you may not get a higher potential of gains, but you will get you probably won't get a higher potential of losses either. And so you need to kind of manage that. That's up to you, right? Some people are okay with the higher risk, some people are not, and that everybody's different. Some of you guys are 20, some of you guys are 60 or 70, and that's completely fine. Like, and there's nothing bad about any of that. It's just you have different. Some of you are single, some of you are married, some of you have money, some of you don't, and so it plays into that, right? So that's what I'm looking at for Ethereum. Now there is going to be a secondary trend here. I mean, pretty much just like this. I don't consider that too much. You have a kind of a C fork situation there. It's low conviction for me, but I did kind of want to mention that. So here is the daily structure here, and so you have right away this fib block I'm looking at. This went above the zone. It rejected here. I would like to see this close above the zone. If it doesn't, that's okay. that were just stuck within the range. This would technically qualify as a deviation, but a low probability one, like a lower strike, like a success rate, because it hit the mid, it didn't hit the high. You want it to clear the highs because it'll create a new demand and then it'll suck the demand away, right? And so here it didn't create new demand; it kind of tapped into it and came back down. So not quite deviation, more of just a invalidated slash rejection, like very strong rejection. So we'll see where that goes. We still have 4 hours left, I think, or almost four. So that's kind of looking at for Ethereum. So very quick, short and sweet. I think Ethereum is the simplest of the five. So let's go ahead and go to Solana. All right, so on to Solana. We're at the weekly time frame again. Pretty big coin, pretty big close for last week. We got about 28%. So again, Ethereum did 29, Solana did 28. So you can see a lot of people are asking me, is the altcoin season coming? And I'm like, it's already here. It's pretty much already here. And so it's actually like Ethereum and Solana have outperformed Bitcoin. Technically, now not as far as the past couple days, but it did outperform Bitcoin last week. And a lot of people don't think that. A lot of people don't consider that. And so, and I understand Bitcoin is the star of the show. It always is and always will be. But we've seen Solana and Ethereum um, be pretty high performing. Dogecoin especially has been as well. I don't know about Sui. I have to check. I haven't really checked Sui lately, so or past couple days. So we had this zone here. So that brings us into a new context. This was your continuation pattern I talked about in the Ethereum section. So we'll get rid of that. And so now we're kind of in this new zone. We broke above the zone here, and now we're working with this, right? And so we have a new level to work with, and that's good. This gives us a lot of different room. I like that we get reclaimed levels, even though we might have a divergence here on higher time frames. I, I think that that's okay for now. I think that is a discussion, but I think that's a discussion for another time. And so we'll see where that goes. But I like this because it gives us a good deviation structure. If we go down below, if we close below here, close below basically the $200 range, then this is a deviation, and then we can start thinking about lower targets again or where that would go. But right now, this is looking just fine. Okay, until this deviates, there's nothing to be concerned about, and I really want to emphasize that because a lot of people are kind of freaking out one way or the other, and I don't even think like guys and girls, like this is no different than any other part of the market cycle. Focus on the levels, the deviations, the trends, the moving averages, the strength. It's the same thing. Okay, don't freak yourself out because a lot of you like, and I don't target anybody. I'm just saying like, a lot of people have spent 2022 afraid they lost money, right? And so they spent 2023 so they spent here like afraid, losing money, whatever. They spent a lot of their time here just thinking, well, it's going to keep going lower, so let's get it to go lower. Like people were excited that this was going to continue lower, and it didn't. And that's exactly one reason that's one minor reason I bought the bottom is because everybody was too excited to just like doom this, and so it consolidated, and you had a long time. Um, let's say right here at the $30 range, you had almost 500 days to buy it at $30 and under. That's a long time. Okay, you had a lot of time to buy under $30. Okay, and if you bought at $30, at the high here, roughly, you're at 6x, 600, so 7x. So it's the opportunity was there, right? And so again, I'm not saying you couldn't do it or whatever. I understand people have lives and things like that. So start going up, everybody's excited, and now we're kind of in this weird zone, right? People are panicking that they didn't buy things like that, and like you can't let yourself be mastered by the market. You have to control your emotions. You have to think 3 to 5 steps ahead. This is a chess game inside a baseball game, inside of all these other things, right? And so you have to. It's a science, but it's also an art form, and so you have to manage this, okay? And so people manage it in different ways. Some people just YOLO on meme coins, right? Some people are very strategizing, but that's how that works. But what I why I'm saying that is because we hit a new level. None of this changes. You still work on these levels, and so this works. So um, we could. I think not necessarily say there's always going to be a risk, right? But you could put something like here and assume that this trade is based off of a market close, right? So if this dips down to 192, comes back up, that doesn't count. That's not a valid stop loss, right? But from here to 300 would basically be a 7R as long as this doesn't invalidate. So if it invalidates, you can think downward targets, but if it doesn't lose the level, don't think about it, okay? These markets, like a lot of this have gained a level, okay? Like people are nervous that Bitcoin is break even today. Like it just went up 30% in a week and like in a week and a half. What more do you want, right? You know, this is insane. The level of gymnastics we're doing for all of this. So anyway, with this, this is kind of what I'm looking at. Don't think about the lower levels until we go back to those levels, right? And so that's pretty much that in a nutshell. Now you may see that I targeted 300 there. That's because I don't really find too much confidence in this 250. I do think that we'll get here, and I think there will be some consolidation. But that's going to be your next level here is about 250, like right on the nose on the low side, 260 on the high side in the liquidity area. If we break that, pretty much sure we're going to 300. So those are the two levels that you got, two or three levels really, 249, 260, 300. So Aaron doing pretty good. Had a low bullish cross here on my band. It actually went expanded above on the trend line, so that's working out good. RSI is just looking just fine right here. Going on to the daily, this is the marker that I looked at from the $200 range. And so we had a rejection here, and this is where like I don't want to freak out because and you shouldn't either because yeah we're down 4.5 almost, but so what? Okay, we're still above the zone. We could still go another 5%. Probably will over the next 5 days. But that's just kind of how it is, and we can maybe bullish retest from there and see how that goes. But that other than that, that's the only target that I have for Solana. We're getting closer to price discovery with Solana, more so than Ethereum, and so it's your targets are going to be thin. Like your analysis is going to be a little bit thinner, but this is why I say focus on the simplicity of this. Don't overcomplicate this. Throw away your heat maps, all your extra subscriptions to Glassdoor, all these other things. Just kidding. Definitely Masari. Do not use Masari. The guy that owned it is terrible guy, but um, my point is focus on what you just see on the charts and focus on just sometimes it's just as simple as buying when things are trendy. I'm just saying. So anyway, that is Solana. Let's go to Sui, and then we'll keep going. All right, let's go to Sui on the weekly. So as far as the five of these coins, this one's probably the trickiest for me. One, because it doesn't have a lot of price history. Two, it's in price discovery as well, so it doesn't give you a frame of reference. Like this could easily go down to all the way down to 20 cents again, and that would make sense to me because the price history is so low. Like you don't really know if the bottom is the bottom. Like for Bitcoin, for example, we know we're never going to 3,000 again, probably never going to go to 10,000 or 20,000 again. But Sui, we don't know. This is a current cycle coin, and it could easily go down. So that's the caveat, right? Another thing is we have a bullish breaker here, and so from a trend perspective, you had this break here. This is that parabolic thing I was telling you about in the Bitcoin section. That if we break above this zone here, above 92,000, we're gonna send even more to make this look like a pump for ants, basically. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at Sui. Excuse me. And we kind of did just that. And so if we look at the price perspective on this from last week, we did 55%. So far, Bitcoin is the lowest performing of the five. I know it's going to be because Dogecoin actually went like 100 something percent. And so this is what you're working with, right? Bitcoin is the most celebrated one, but it's the lowest performing one. And so that's, again, this reiterates to me that altcoin season is here. Okay. And I don't know where people, because I've been here, man, 2017, so decent. I don't know where people got the idea that altcoins like Bitcoin cannot run while altcoins run. Like I'm used to them all running at the same time, right? And so people are looking at the Bitcoin dominance chart. Well, if these four altcoins are outperforming Bitcoin, then the dominance is going down. Okay, so it doesn't make sense. A lot of you guys are trying to look too into this. You get lost in the weeds and all that kind of stuff. So just kind of forget about this. Have a Darth Maul so far, probably the least performing can of the coin of the top five for this week. But we'll see. We could come back down to 250. I think that's a very easy target right there to look at. But otherwise, looking pretty solid. We had a bullish cross at 58% back in September 16th, and we haven't looked back since. RSI is looking good. Kind of getting a divergence here. I would be cautious with the divergence and the breaker here. I think we could touch down to 230 and then snap back above very quickly. So going on to the daily, you have your consolidation structure here that we looked at, and so that's kind of that zone. Impulsing pretty good here. Got kind of oversold, but it came back down. No big deal. RSI's or Aaron's looking fine, but we are kind of getting into a consolidation wedge here, and so I just be kind of mindful of this. This is hard to kind of interpret because this came down. It wicked pretty good. The strength is still there. There's no weakness. It's still looking pretty solid. Um, the band shows that it's kind of when it's in the band, it's kind of like an indecision point. So we'll see where this goes. But otherwise, I think this is still a very healthy coin. I think you just need to be patient. Give this the Ethereum treatment where if you are interested in it, you buy and you hold and you just forget that you own it, right? So, but we'll see. I think of the five, this has the best potential to come down more because it launched so high, and I think 250 would suffice. And if not, you look at this as a range break, right? And so if this, let's just say this goes up now, your range break would be 320, and so you long like this, okay? And then you just long to 4 or 5 or whatever that may be for you, right? So that's how that would look. So anyway, that's Sui. Really short and sweet. Let's get into the big dog, which is Dogecoin. All right, so going on to Dogecoin, let's go ahead and go to the weekly here. And as you can see, it had a pretty good week. As far as this goes, the weekly itself was 84%. So that was the highest. I think we kind of scaled higher every time except for Solana. And so that was pretty good. So like I said, Bitcoin was the lowest performing of the five. And that goes to show you that altcoin season is here, in my opinion. Like we've had a bigger rally for Dogecoin than we've had probably for 3 years now. Not quite sure how long this is. About almost 1,300 days. So that's pretty significant. I mean, that was what, May of 2021, and so now we're in November of 2024. So that's going pretty good. And so on top of that, to current prices, we're at about 148%. So this is pretty good. Now, Dogecoin is a very interesting coin for me to talk about publicly because of the five, this is the one I've talked about the most in the private group, in the premium group. And so we talked about this about a month ago. We were in the woods here. I think our average buy-in was about 14-15 cents. And so if you base it off of that standpoint, we got in just slightly early here. If we do 14.1, you're at about 166. So not too much overall, but we were a little bit early because I kind of saw this coming. The one reason I saw this coming is because you had your consolidation, this flipped up the band, and then it sustained itself, right? And so this was your trigger to be interested in it. And then when it went above this break, so when it went above this zone here, that was your sign to pay attention, right, and get in. And so it pretty much accelerated. Now, Dogecoin's also troubling, or it's unique because once it pumps, if it goes all the way up, then it fades back down. So this is possible. This could be the top, and I don't personally think it is, but you got to think about the way Dogecoin behaves. It's very blow off top ish, right? And so you just have to keep that in mind. I think I need a different chart to kind of show you what I mean. But something like this was taking place. So you had the zone here, you had the consolidation fade, flip above. Again, another sign to look upward, and so that's good. Here we had a very clear divergence here. We had a divergence. This looks like pointless now, but this was a pretty sizable run, even at the lows. You're still talking like a 13x, 14x, right? So you had your divergence there. You had a divergence here as well, right? And so two big things, right? Both of them are divergences. Both of them are above this dotted line, which is the 80 RSI. That's very key for me. 80 RSI is the key for me to start paying attention for things to reject. At a minimum, take a little bit of profits, and then just kind of work with that, right? So now we're kind of seeing something similar with the current price. We are above the 40 here, or the 80, I should say, but there's no divergence yet. So this, we spent some time, we spent about 50 days, 60 days to do that. And so if we do that now, that would give us to almost New Year's, right? So you could see it. You could see something here to do that, and then we relaunch. That would trigger a divergence, and then you get out, right? And so I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case, but we'll see where this goes. Because if that does, let's say we do get to like $1.50, which is my personal target. If we get a big divergence at 150, I'm probably going to sell, and that's probably going to be the end of the bull market. And so the thing is, right now, like a lot of you think that you have a year or 2 years left to this, you probably have a year or less. Okay, and we might accelerate very quickly. I think there's good chances to get 150,000 Bitcoin. My personal targets 180,000 Bitcoin. Ethereum, I don't know. Solana, $600. I'm looking at $600. Dogecoin, $1.50. There's other ones I can't think of off the top of my head. Um, and some of them don't matter because it's based off of, I base them off of divergences or invalidations, right? So, but that could all happen really quickly. Like we could get to Bitcoin 180,000 very quickly within 60 to 90 days, and then the bear market starts again. Okay. And so that's the thing. A lot of you guys think you have a lot of time in this cycle, and I personally don't think so. I am very, very, very bullish. I'm bullish more than I have been for the past 2 years, but I also think the time is running off the clock. Okay. If this is an American baseball game, I think that we're in the bottom of the seventh, top of the eighth. Okay. We're getting close to the end of the game here. Okay. Or if it's football, I mean, you're getting close to, not at the 2 minute warning, but you're getting close to the 2 minute warning. For the Wall Street cheat sheet, I've mentioned on CT that optimism. I think we're in the optimistic phase. Okay, I don't think we're in the thrill phase yet. I think we're still optimistic here because there's a lot of conflicting people, but I think we might just barely get into thrill. But I think optimism really serves that much better. So what I'm saying is I do think we're 75% done with this cycle already. Um, and so what have you done with this cycle, right? And so my thing is you might get a little tripped up here. I think the prices will accelerate faster than you might think. We might go higher than you're going to think, but you also are probably going to think, we go up higher at the expense of time, right? And so usually we take a longer time to go a shorter distance in consolidation markets, bearish markets, or sometimes bearish markets. But then when we flip to the full bull, we go a longer, we go much higher with a lower amount of time. And so that's the thing. I don't think you guys understand how little time you might have with this cycle, and then we start all over again. So we'll see where this goes. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the whole entire next year is completely bullish and everybody retires, right? So anyway, that it's kind of Dogecoin. I mean, there's not really much else to say. We can kind of look at this from a daily perspective, and it doesn't give you much else. A lot of people were telling me about buying in, and I said 23 cents was the trigger to the acceleration, and that was the case. So we went ahead and moved on from there. Now, if you want to buy in, I personally don't think it's the best idea, and this is kind of where my band comes into play. My band shows of 31 cents. So if you get a dip below 35, you come back in, you buy that. I think that might be okay. But this is where buying lower matters, right? And so I think we could be getting in a reaccumulation phase here. And so I would not be surprised if this chops. And then if you did want to get in, you look at this from a block, right? This is a very early block, but if it breaks and holds 41 in this case, you could long from there. So that's what I'm looking at, and that's the thing. Like my goal is, I mean, obviously I want to share everything I can with you guys, but I also don't like I want you to trade on your own, like give you the tools you need to build your own strategy. And that's kind of why I have flexible blocks with that. Like there's sometimes there isn't a fixed price. And so that would depend, again, it's a trending market. It's going to depend on the trend, right? So that is Dogecoin. And so that's pretty much the video. So I'll do a quick recap. I mean, Bitcoin went pretty high. I think that we're going to get to about 92, 93. I think we'll stall a little bit, and a couple weeks later we'll get to 100, and then we'll kind of go back and forth between 80 and 100 for some time. But none of that's going to be bearish. I think that that's pretty much bullish. While altcoins take a run, Ethereum kind of in this big consolidation block. I think a break of the 3,600 marker, or really just the 4,000 marker, is going to accelerate us even higher. And be on our way for higher targets. Solana broke the weekly. This is probably my favorite chart of them all. This is the cleanest chart of them all as well. Broke above on this weekly here, targeting 250, 260, and possibly 300. You have a very good clean invalidation. So if this does go sour, you know exactly where to cut your position. Sui, a little more unpredictable. I'm a little more a fan of just buying and holding this if you're interested. If you're not, or you want to buy lower, 250 seems to be the target where that trend line is. And then Dogecoin's already up 8.5%. This one's the trickiest because it's already accelerated so much. Dogecoin has a habit of just completely roller coastering back down. So it's not necessarily a good idea to buy at any particular time. But I did mention look for lower time frames, 4 hour or lower, try to ride a trend that you can find. So anyway, that's the video. Let me know what you think. I'm happy to discuss things more. Again, go ahead and check out the links if you can see them, or check out the scripts, check out the the group. Happy to share more. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.